Hi, everybody, and welcome to Ordinary Visionaries. And today we have a special person in a way because he's the only person I've interviewed that lives near me in Boulder Creek, California. His name is Christopher Bradford, and you'll learn all about him. And Christopher, what makes you an ordinary visionary?
Thank you first for having me on, Robert. I really appreciate it. It's always great getting to connect and talk with people like this.
Thank you.
The idea of the ordinary visionary, that really struck me when we were talking about it a little bit earlier. It's so important, I think, that people feel like they can make a difference if they act, on the things that they think are important. And I think that's what makes me an ordinary visionary is that I talk to the people around me, I observe and I think, man, this could be better this way if we did X, Y, Z. And instead of just thinking about it, I say, let's get out and do it. You know, I think we can craft the world around us, if we carefully nurture, if we take right action. And I've seen it in my children as they develop. I've seen it in the martial arts, for instance. When people move with intention, you can make things happen. And
Are you a martial artist?
I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I have a Jiu-Jitsu school in Scotts Valley.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's
So
called
that's
Kaiju Martial Arts. It's a good club. A lot of tough men and women there. So folks, come on out and see us.
you know, uh, so let's get right into you're running for District 5 of Santa Cruz County or of
Mhm.
what
Yep.
area?
Yep.
As a supervisor. The supervisor that's been around for quite a while is retiring, and you're running, and you have some competition.
I
We
do.
won't talk much about the competition. We're not here to put anybody down, but
Absolutely not. I say this all the time. I'm not running against my competitor. I'm running for my community. Right.
yeah, yes. And that's the kind of politics people are I think finally going, yeah, we need more of that these days. Really,
Well,
really.
with the mess that national politics are, I love that like local politics, all those all those identifiers don't matter as much. These are your neighbors. We have important
Yeah.
stuff to talk about that happens and affects all of us, right? And so we have to work together and we have to focus on what's good for our communities and less about what's being yelled at on TV, on a regular basis. I love that about local politics.
Well, I watch way too much national politics. I know way too much about what's going on. It's
Uh,
poisoned my mind for the
oh,
last 7 years.
same. I try to stay tuned in, and you have to, right? You have to, or important things will pass you
Yeah.
by. But I do think it's unfortunate how many folks don't participate in what's happening locally, where every vote and every person's ideas matter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's well, it's kind of it doesn't get a lot of coverage. There's not a lot of in the papers about it. So, doing something like this is a good thing. So let's backtrack a little bit. Um, someone who is a master martial artist and has a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, that's someone who had to go through the fire. You know, I'm now engaged in an exercise program, a very simple exercise program. I'm 70, almost 72. Martial arts was not for me, but I'm moving my
Right.
body.
You found the
But
right way to move your body, right? Yeah.
my body, I'm taking it. I play music. I use weights. I have fun.
Excellent.
I work up
Good.
to it.
Good.
But martial arts is. I was in Taekwondo for a while, and it was
Mhm.
it was killingly hard.
It's hard, and you only get better through suffering. Specifically in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's true.
I'm
But
sure any of
but
those big martial arts like karate and all
yeah,
of
yeah.
those things.
hmm You
I
you have
know.
to get in there and you have to suffer, but it's so great for building character and refining your character, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
the hard things that I've had to do in life, I've had to say, okay, I'm willing to endure this discomfort in order to get to the goal that I need. Whether that discomfort was hours of study, whether it was working 3 or 4 jobs to make sure my family was taken care of, I can I'm good at enduring the suffering to get to the good parts, right? And
Yeah.
it's worthwhile. It's something I'm very proud to have taught my children, on the mats and by example as well. Kids come into my school, young men, yeah, even maybe not just young folks, older folks too, and they work hard and they suffer and suffer, but the sense of pride. I mean, there's a lot of
That's
suffering.
Sounds like so much fun. So how did you get into martial arts in the first place? What drew you to that?
Oh man! So when I was a child, and I think a lot of folks my generation, it was Bruce Lee at first. I watched
Ah,
him. My father would watch old kung fu movies, and he would buy them for me, and I watched them on VHS tapes after school. And half the time it wasn't even Bruce Lee; it was one of the imposter Bruce Lee's, But I
right.
thought, oh, this is amazing, and then I started getting involved. And then I went to a rough school for a little while, and I saw a lot of conflict, and I didn't always feel safe, and so I wanted to learn how to defend myself too.
Yeah.
And after that, I just got deeper and deeper into it. I started with kung fu, and then I went to karate. Got my first black belt was in Kui Lima Kempo, which is a Hawaiian martial arts style. And
Wow.
then after that, judo, and then Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Right. So if you meet Chris on the street, don't mess with him.
Oh yeah, look, hey, I love to say that I am an actively peaceful man, right?
I'm
I'm
sure
not.
you are. I
I
mean,
don't know if you've heard the analogy, right? There's the analogy. You want to be peaceful and not harmless, right? Uh, to be peaceful, you have to have the option of being otherwise, right?
yeah.
Whereas if you're harmless, you're harmless, So I
So
choose to be peaceful.
so the only harder sport than martial arts is politics.
Oh, and it is tough, and it's shocking when you engage fully in it, the amount of things you have to juggle and manage, right? If you're running against an establishment candidate, you have to deal with the culture there. You have to raise money. You have to get your voice out and communicate with people. And most of all, you have to listen. And I think that's something that people both appreciate when they encounter it, but also some politicians don't take seriously enough. If you're not listening to people, if you're talking at them instead of taking in from them, then you're not going to be able to meet their needs. And they can tell. They can tell when you're just speaking slogans to them as opposed to genuinely interacting. And that's something I think that we need to get away from. And I think it's something that we can do on the local level. We can
Yeah.
connect deeply, right? I've been running since last year around summertime. And now I can't, if I go to the grocery store, my neighbors come up, hey, Christopher, hey, let's talk, right? And because I'm a real person in their neighborhoods, I'm really their neighbor. I'm accessible in ways that other politicians perhaps aren't,
Yes.
And
You
so,
don't look like everybody else around here.
yeah, you can't miss me, right? I'm 6'2", 285, and I drive a big red truck. So if I get elected, you'll be able to find your supervisor, folks.
Yeah,
And
really.
I'm happy to hear from you.
So tell us, what are some of the biggest issues in Santa Cruz
Mhm.
County? The
So we
things,
have,
we had a big, when we had the fire, I blogged about the fire every day. I did a fire diary for a couple weeks, and
oh, beautiful.
it was quite an experience for the people that are listening, not in Boulder Creek. We had a big fire near the town center. It didn't get too near, didn't burn the town down, thank God. The firefighters were awesome, but the whole area evacuated for 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
900 homes were burned down, including Chris. It was, but you've rebuilt, right? You were,
I'm one of the lucky ones, right? You
yeah,
talk
really,
about the issues that we're dealing with. One of them
yeah,
is, it's nearly impossible to build out here, and it's created a ton of deep-seated housing issues that we need to address. Uh,
right.
you look at people who had to rebuild from the fire. Less than 40 homes have been rebuilt. We lost 911, and it's been almost 4 years now.
That's less than 5%.
Yeah, it's unconscionable. It's
Yes,
unacceptable. And, I say it all the time. The first disaster was the fire. The second disaster was the county's response to the fire.
right.
We got to get a lot of change going, especially in our planning department, which is notorious. There's a lot of good folks working in the county trying to do their best. But it's hard to work against the tide of culture,
Yeah,
and the culture of a place that you're working at guides your actions. And we need change. We need to get away from a culture of starting with the no, right? We need to start with finding a yes. How do we get people to where they need? You
the,
know?
the thing that gets me is it wasn't just a few homes that burned down. It was
They almost
ridiculous,
1,000. Like that's a town.
almost 1,000. There really is a lot,
Mhm.
and they, I don't know why they couldn't meet the need. Obviously, they didn't have enough people
Yeah, they definitely
get
weren't
out
prepared.
there and do the things to approve the lots and all that stuff. And
Right, right.
we have
They,
somewhere around the corner from 2017. They had a slide against their house and it made their house unlivable. They've
Mhm.
been working on getting permits for the last 6 years. They've been
Yeah,
out of the house 6 years.
6 years.
I don't understand it. I mean, it's too
Unacceptable.
easy.
You look at other places that have experienced disasters worse than what we experienced, with more loss, and you're looking at less than a year, something like 70+% of homes rebuilt. That's closer
Really?
to the norm. What we've experienced is astonishingly bad. And the county's response, I'll give you an example. They told us initially that they weren't going to treat us like new builds, that people would be able to rebuild in kind, right? And so folks got excited. Okay. They took loans out, they got money so that they could make it happen. And then the county pulled the rug out from us. I said, oh no, people have to meet the new septic standards. People have to install sprinkler systems. I'd install a 10,000 gallon tank and a sprinkler system into my home that did not have one before the fire. And I was only able to do it because I took a giant loan from the SBA. Not everyone can do that, and not everyone is a semi-public figure like myself and my wife are. So
Yeah.
when we ran into issues with the planning department, we didn't just stand for it. We made a lot of noise and we pushed and pushed. Some
Yeah.
folks don't have the energy or the facility to do that, right? And they shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to be a political figure to rebuild your
No.
home after a disaster out here.
Right.
And yeah, it's terrible. We have so many. I used to. I have a couple businesses. One of my business, I fly drones and do photography. And for that particular business, sometimes I'm up in Bonnie Doon, and it's a beautiful area. You get that drone up and you look down, you can see so many devastated properties with trailers on them and wreckage where the house used to be, where there probably will never be a house again. And some of these folks are older folks, retired folks. You're in your 70s, you shouldn't have to suffer through a brutal 5+ year rebuilding process. That's,
Yeah.
it's
I've heard rumors that some rich people are coming in and buying a lot of these properties. Do you know about that?
I have heard that as well. And, they would have to be rich. I couldn't buy my own property right now if I had to, because of the way housing, right? You understand? Especially with these interest rates, right? Interest rates are at 8%. I bought my house close to 3%. If I sell my house, I couldn't afford the mortgage payment on a new house anyway. I would be out of luck. And a lot of folks are stuck that way too. And we're where we are in our county because we've had that almost a moratorium on building for decades. I know we wanted to avoid becoming a bedroom community for San Jose. That didn't work, right? And we just aggravated the problem and made it so that, only millionaires could afford to buy the homes that are being sold out here, or folks who are going to take on massive amounts of debt.
Right.
And that's not the way it should be. I've got 3 16-year-olds, right? In 2 or 3 years, they'll be old enough if they want to. Oh, so it's complicated. We have a blended family, right? But so I have a pair of twins that were 16-year-olds, and I also have a son who's 16 that was my wife's son.
I see.
And I have a pair of 10-year-old twins, in addition to a 16-year-old niece who we took in. We've got a lot of children.
You think you have problems? Oh my God! We're a retired couple. We have no kids around anymore. They're all on their own. But oh my God!
Well, hey, you served your time. You successfully launched.
Well, they're my wife's kids. Mm-hmm. When I married her, they were about to leave home, so I got away scot-free without having to raise kids.
Right.
But you think with this. Things can be very hard these days. Things are expensive. It's hard to get certain things done. Things are ultra bureaucratic, and obviously there have to be rules. But
sure.
So, how do you think you can wrangle this to?
So I think the first thing we have to do
move the boulder forward up the hill.
Right. It's hard. I think sometimes people make the mistake of equating difficult and impossible, right? It's going to be difficult, but it can be done. And we're going to start by changing that culture. We're going to start by reducing the amount of bureaucracy that people are dealing with. A lot of what people are experiencing is, I'll give you an example. Depending on who your inspector is, sometimes you'll get different results. And It shouldn't be that way, right? If you get X inspector, okay, this guy's going to pass you. You get this guy, oh, no, you need to do X, Y, Z. That's not the way it should be, right? And so we have a real problem with inconsistency. We have a problem, again, with people looking to find reasons to stop folks from successfully building. And we've got to turn that culture around. I was a business owner, I am a business owner, and you are as well. And you understand how important both positive feedback and accountability are. Yep. Right now, the board, the folks who work for county government, they report to the board. It's our job to hold them accountable. And that means we have to set expectations. We have to say, this is what we expect. This is what we need to see. We have to follow up. We have to be present and accountable. We have to be living real figures in their day-to-day work. You can't just be, figureheads floating on top who aren't engaged with them. If you do that, then the culture of the department runs the department. It'll just autopilot and do what it's always done. And that's what we've experienced.
It seems to be a lack of leadership, frankly.
Yes.
Everyone, I don't know, the people that needed to step up to make the changes, often, I know in my life I want to make changes, and sometimes those changes happen and sometimes they don't, and you procrastinate and things are hard. But I don't have to lead anybody else. I don't have to change a frickin' culture, that's ingrained. And it's
and that's hard to do.
I'm sure it's even worse in big cities like New York City and stuff with 27 layers of bureaucracy and stuff like that. But
definitely, it's got to be. Well, the good thing about, again, small government is that these are real people making these decisions. They're individuals who are making choices, and we can help people make choices that are great for our community if we give them the resources that we need, if we set the expectation of what we want result-wise. And then if we have accountability, if you can't, meet these expectations, yes, sometimes you have to invite people to explore opportunities elsewhere, and you never want to start with that. But of course, if you cannot make the good changes in the culture, you have to have people on board and in place who will help you do that. I think that's important. I think we're at the point now where we need drastic change. People's lives are being ruined by this culture and by this, and it has to stop. I don't want to see another family, another elder, lose their homes, lose their livelihood, all the value that they've earned, right? You look at, home ownership, that's how we built a middle class. And all that equity, all of that value just burnt away. And if you can't replace that home, that value's gone too. These folks are just left with nothing that they worked for their whole lives. And I'll be frank, I'm sick of it. It makes me viscerally angry to see this happen to people in our community. And it has to change.
So I have a question for you. How many districts are there in Santa Cruz County?
So there are 5 total.
There's 5 total. Now, because Bruce McPherson left, you're running for that seat.
Yes.
Now, how about the other 4 districts? Are there a lot of elections in those districts as well?
Yes. So there's going to be a lot of change on the board this year. So I think there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I mean, Manu is experienced, and Justin isn't up for. Justin is still going fine. We might have up to 3 new members on the board. Come next year.
Have you been in communication with them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I am.
Are there people there that could be partners with you that are on agreement?
Yeah, definitely. Those relationships are so important, and so I'm on the board of directors for the Fire Safe Council, and I'm directly involved in fire mitigation and disaster preparedness. And so I'm already doing the work that my community wants done. I'm not waiting until I'm in office. I've connected directly with Justin, directly with Manu. We've talked about tiny homes. We've talked about mitigation. We've talked about just ideas to increase safety in our infrastructure. So I'm already building those relationships to make sure that we can work well together to reach goals that are important for all of us. We're all in this boat together, and if we want to bail, we got to bail that water out together too.
That's great. There's so much conflict these days. It's kind of inspiring to hear someone that has concrete plans, is thinking like a martial artist.
Well, I want to win that fight, and the fight is for our communities. And
Yeah.
it's important to me. I've got so much skin in the game. This is where my children are growing up. This is where I live.
Yeah.
And I want us to thrive, not just survive, thrive.
Yeah.
We can get there if we have the kind of leadership that is passionate and is willing to go to bat for us, and to be there and present and to take risks and make moves. We need that. We don't want someone just sitting in the seat and holding it,
Right.
as a political appointment.
Well, we definitely need something like that. Santa Cruz is county, and especially this area, the San Lorenzo Valley, Boulder Creekian, etc., is a pretty mellow lifestyle. I mean, it's it's people that are kind of laid back and they like living in the woods and
mostly minding their business and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of nice people here since I've been here.
Good folks.
And but I'm not a political animal. I'm interested in politics, but to do stuff in government, I don't know. It's just not in my blood.
For sure.
So, but I like to bring things out in people. This is why I'm doing these ordinary visionary things, just to see what people are up to. And that inspires me.
This
and
is
hopefully
great.
some people will see this and say, well, I like what Christopher is saying,
Well, I hope so. And what you're doing is so important, right? Because if people don't have a venue, if people don't have an opportunity to see people and connect, then they can't make educated choices. And so, you may not want to be in the office in politics, but your involvement, what you're doing is incredibly important, and it makes a difference. Yeah, it really does.
I found that posting on Nextdoor has been a really great thing. It's the only social media I use because it's with neighbors. And, I'm not going to get into the things I've done. You could look up my profile, but
for sure.
for instance, I put on a Thanksgiving dinner a couple of years in a row for homeless people.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
I love that. That's real practical good work. And you can make it, see, you were talking about ordinary people who are visionaries. Like, that's powerful. You didn't sit at home and think, man, I wish I could do something. You got to think.
But here's the thing. People want to participate. The first one I did last year, I thought about it the week before. I met some homeless people in the Junction Park area where I walk my dogs every day. I go and walk my dogs, and I met a lot of people. And I said, I can't imagine going to a nice Thanksgiving dinner when all these people are
suffering,
don't have it. And so what I did is I put a notice on Nextdoor Boulder Creek and said, we're going to do a Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to bring the turkey and bring side dishes. And we had many people that brought stuff, and we fed about 45 people. And next year we had a little more planning, and we had more food. We had so much food. It was ridiculous.
Things like this is why I love this community so much.
Yeah.
People like you, it's that kind of neighborly approach to things. That's something that you don't see in our cities.
People love to contribute,
Mm-hmm.
Something I learned a long time ago. It's like, oh, you shouldn't ask people. No, people love to contribute if you just ask them. I've seen some of your posts, come and get yard signs, and a whole bunch of people got yard signs. And
it's great. It's
getting people involved in it, and I've seen those signs now around.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. We're trying to balance making people aware without being obnoxious about it. So we're getting them out there. It's important. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing a good job. So I would, I think we all want to live in a better community, but sometimes we just feel kind of helpless.
Yeah, we can feel stuck.
I liked Bruce McPherson. I thought he was a nice guy, but it's
well, it's time for change. I think Bruce has done a lot of good for the community over many years he served. I mean, 12 years. That's a lot of time to serve a community, and he's dealt with a lot of stuff in his life. So I always tell people, I feel like the county's disaster response, that was a failure, and it was. There's no getting around that. But Bruce and his team wanted to do things properly, and they wanted to take care of people. It just got out of control, and they were not prepared. That's one thing. There are a dozen things he's done that are fantastic. So, I think it's clear that, I think I want it to be clear we're not in here to sit in judgment, of Bruce in a negative way. I
Yeah.
feel like he's done so much for the community that was good.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can look at specific things like the response and say, hey, this was a problem, and we can correct the problem.
So that's great. So what kind of help are you looking for in your campaign?
So the community participation is huge. We try to do a lot of events to connect with people. We do a lot of meet and greets and other things like that where we have an opportunity to really listen, to the folks in the community, hear their concerns so that we can represent them well.
Aren't you having one of those meetings in just a few days?
We are. So we have a meet and greet coming in Boulder Creek. And oftentimes these are public. They're kind of, a person invites their neighbors and their friends.
But I saw a poster on the street today.
You saw a poster on the street. Okay, so we do have a forum coming up with the Valley Women's Club, where a bunch of us are going to be, myself and some of the other folks who are running are going to have an open forum where we answer questions and speak directly to the public.
What day is that on?
That's an excellent question. I believe that's on the 7th, but I'd have to look on the poster.
On the 2nd or the 7th?
1 second. I'm going to check my calendar to make sure. I don't want to give the people the wrong date. All right, let's see. That's a North County one. Ooh, that's a lot. Okay, so it's actually the 7th. Yeah, so it'll be at 6 p.m. At the Highlands County Park, the Senior Center.
And what date again? The 7th?
The 7th, yeah, February 7th.
Okay. So
definitely come and ask us questions, and I'm an open book.
Right. I'll see if I can make it.
That'd be fantastic.
I would like to come. And I'll post this on Nextdoor and Boulder Creek Neighbors, and some people will see it, which won't hurt.
Oh, I love that. And Nextdoor is great. It's all our neighbors, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Chris, it's really a pleasure to meet you. You're I just tell you, you're a great guy. You're a great guy. You're an entrepreneur. You have glowing energy. Seriously. And
you just made my day.
I feel very good about your candidacy, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, Robert, and I would love to invite you to continue connecting. And if you find as things go along that there are things you think I could do better, I would love to hear it. So I don't want to just hear the good stuff. I want to hear all of it so I can make changes.
Keep doing what you're doing. You get it.
Absolutely.
You get it.
And you as well. This is a great forum. I can't wait to watch your next interview and see what you bring out of them. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Robert. This is so much fun. It was great talking to you.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Be well.
Okay. Bye-bye.